We are back in the Bluegrass again today. I am your host, Steve Farno. Thanks for joining us. Today we're going to be discussing, is now the right time to sell your house, and what do you need to know? From interest rates to inventory, there's a lot of things going on right now to consider, and we want to make sure that you are comfortable, confident, and well-informed as you begin this process. As we dive in today, what we're going to be discussing, we're going to talk about understanding the current market. We think that we are seeing a bit of a shift. We're going to go over evaluating kind of your personal financial thumbprint and how that impacts your decision to sell your home. We'll look at the local market a little bit and kind of what's going on in central Kentucky. We'll talk about the impact of interest rates and what that means to you as a seller and how that is impacting buyers' decisions. We'll talk a little bit about the inventory and those types of things with regards to the market. We'll cover things along the lines of getting your home specifically ready and what that means and what that looks like and the financial burden that could bring, and just kind of go over everything so that you're comfortable, you're informed, and feel like you can make a really great decision on whether or not now is the time to sell your home. All right, so let's start off by trying to understand our current market. The current housing market has been a little bit sluggish this year with higher interest rates, right? So we've had rates that have been higher than we've seen in 20 plus years this year, in the high sevens. And luckily we've seen those dip now down almost back to 6. And some folks have probably gotten some rates in the high fives over the last couple of weeks. We still see home prices at all-time highs right now. And we're still dealing with an inventory that is much, much lower than it was pre-pandemic, right? We're still way behind in the amount of homes. So what will happen if rates do suddenly drop down into that low 5s or even 4s? You're going to see all these buyers coming off the sideline and absorbing any of that little bit of extra inventory that we've seen lately. So right now is an interesting time. We've got more comfortable rates. Houses have been sitting for a little bit longer on the market due to the higher rates throughout the summer. And a lot of the buyers have been sitting back and kind of waiting. So this may be an absolutely perfect time to start to think about getting that house on the market and price it correctly, because buyers are starting to look again. And I think we're going to see them jump back in here quickly. It should make for a really interesting fall housing market. So some other things to think about as you are considering selling your house. According to CoreLogic, and this is a statistic that I've seen a lot over the last year, around 50% of homeowners in the U.S. have better than 50% equity in their homes. And over 37% of homeowners in the U.S. own their homes outright. The amount of equity that people have seen gained in their homes over the last few years has been incredible. I saw a statistic that over the last 5 years or so that home equity or appreciation has been up in Kentucky around 57% in Kentucky over the last 5+ years, which is an incredible amount of appreciation. So that is a statistic that, as a seller, that gives you a ton of equity to use in that next house. So while you might be looking at a rate above that 3% you refinanced a couple of years ago, you're bringing a lot more cash to your next purchase than you ever have before, possibly. And that gives you a lot of buying power to buy your next home as a seller thinking about listing. So personally, as you think about why you're ready to sell or what are the reasons you want to sell, as an agent, one of the things we want to understand is your sense of urgency. Why are you moving, right? What are the reasons for this? Is it a downsize? Is it a relocation due to a job? Is it schools, neighborhoods? What is it that's driving your decision to sell your home right now? It may be simply, hey, I want to capitalize on some of that equity now and be able to use that for something else. Maybe you're going to downsize and buy a real estate property and start to get into some real estate investments. Those are all great reasons, but everyone's going to have their own driver for why they're thinking about moving. And the piece of that you want to also consider is the financial side of it. What is your current situation? And as we just said, most folks that have been in their homes for over 5 years have seen a huge increase in the value of their homes and probably have a lot of cash to bring to that next transaction. It gives you a lot of power as you look to move into that next home. With rates where they are, we've seen the Fed has dropped their prime. That does not mean that rates are suddenly going to plummet, right? We're seeing a steady kind of trickle down. It's an election year, so There's all kinds of things at play here on why rates may stay where they are, go up, down. The Fed has announced victory over inflation, which I think if we're grocery shopping lately, we may not totally understand where they're coming from. But I think that as you look at your personal situation, what's the urgency? What's your financial situation? What are the factors that are going to impact you as you move forward in this process of selling your home? So kind of continuing the conversation on the timing of the market, I think if you are thinking about how can I just time this perfectly, whether you're selling or buying, is really hard to do. It's almost impossible to ever nail it identically, right? Or to get it perfect, right? You're not ever going to be in that Goldilocks range unless you're just really lucky. I do think right now, over the next few weeks, we've seen rates drop. We have an inventory that's bigger than it's been in over a year. Now is not a bad time, whether you're buying or selling, to get in there and find that house that you need. But it has to tie into the reasons that meet your needs, right? Don't just do it because, oh, this might be at the Goldilocks range. Buy and sell because you need to, because you're moving, because you're downsizing, relocating for work. Whatever the reason that you have is perfectly fine. And now I think might be a really great window over the next few weeks here in the fall in Central Kentucky to find a house for you as a buyer. And if you're selling, you're going to see more buyers jumping in the market, I think, over the next few weeks. And there's going to be more of them fighting for your home, which is always a good thing if you're selling. So that's something to think about as you're considering this process. So I hope that you all have found this video helpful. And if you have questions, please schedule an appointment. Would love to talk to you on the phone or sit down and grab a coffee. Please like and subscribe below. Share this with your friends and family. We'd love to have a conversation about real estate and living here in Central Kentucky. And as always, thanks for joining us here on Back in the Bluegrass.